Welcome back, everyone. I am Elizabeth from Gear Up, Iowa, here on another segment of GUI Coffee Talks. I am so excited to have these two wonderful coaches here. They represented the largest school district in the state, DMPS. So, yep. Very excited to have you both on this, I guess you can call it mini show. So tell me how long you've been a coach and where were you located, and what you're doing now.
John, I'm going to have you go first.
No problem, boss. Hey, John Preston. I was in Des Moines and I was over at Hoover High School for 4 years. And now I am working for Community Youth Concepts in Des Moines. So I'm over here running a mentoring program and some youth volunteering programs.
Cool. My name's Christine Nguyen. I was the Gear Up mentoring coach at Lincoln High School in Des Moines. I was there for about a year. Prior to my position, Justin Ellis, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, was the coach before me. He was the basketball coach. But now, since transitioning out of Gear Up, I'm the program coordinator at Campus Compact, so helping running our Americorps program. We work with minimum time members at our partnering colleges all over the state to keep the mission going. But yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Christine, tell me a little bit about Americorps. I know we hear that word and that term often, but what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so I was curious. I think John was a Americorps member too. We were both Americorps members. But Americorps is basically the national service. And it's basically just around serving the community. So that's really what we focus on with our students, is making sure that, what is it like to be a civically engaged member? And how are you civically engaged in your community, and why is it important? For example, for myself, I was an Americorps member at Community Youth Concepts with Iowa Department of Public Health, and I ran substance abuse training, and that really aligned with our youth enrichment programs, because for teen pregnancy and just prevention was really our main goal. But yeah, that's kind of what AmeriCorps is about, is really just being civically engaged in your community and serving your community.
And John, you were a part of the Americorps.
Americorps, yes, not through CYC. I was doing Green Iowa Americorps probably like 5.5 years ago, which was going around Des Moines and finding projects that related to sustainability in some way. The main gig was I was kind of the volunteer coordinator there again, and that was just connecting with families and households of various groups of people that the city had identified as people who would benefit from lower energy bills. So we'd reach out to seniors, veterans, low income families, and then just try and find ways to make their homes more energy efficient.
So you guys have really been in the community for quite some time now, and just through different transitions. I know, John, you mentioned that you were at the high school for 4 years. Tell me, what was something that you saw that was very rewarding to you, that at the end you're like, yeah, this thing happened. And that can be anytime from freshman year all the way to even now, as your students are going into sophomore year of college.
Yeah. Let's see. I just getting to know students and then kind of seeing them find what they're interested in. And of course, as a Gear Up coach, we were real jazzed when kids were finding stuff about oh, hey, this is what I want to study in college. But even like back a level, just like finding a kid who's like, oh, actually drama does seem really cool. Like no friends in drama, but they like tried out and they're like, hey, this is crazy. I've been missing out. So just finding people's passions there. And I would say like, it's just kind of cool to see like the youth's development. CYC has a scholarship for volunteer service and a certificate of recognition, and a Hoover student was recognized last Wednesday at CYC's, like we have a high ropes course, and we did a ribbon cutting there. So shout out to Ferdinand Alobo, awesome kid out of Hoover, and he got recognized there for like some volunteer service he does. So just kind of seeing like how small the community is and seeing like the trajectory of like the awesome kids that are coming out of our schools, and just you know, how they're still helping out the community and what they're doing has been really cool and rewarding.
That is, I will have to say that is a humbling experience, seeing these students grow and just kind of give back to the community. And you know, just it's a reflection of really that they've been listening, even though when we thought, you know, they weren't. Christine, what about you? What was the most rewarding part or parts of being a Gear Up coach?
Yeah, so I actually really love this question a lot, because when I went into my position as a Gear Up mentoring coach, I had just recently graduated college a couple months before, as a first generation student. And I think the most rewarding part was being able to work with other first gen students coming from underrepresented communities, and, you know, seeing them like wanting to go to college and their persistence, um, and their motivation as well too. And in a way, like I felt like that was like kind of a reflection of where I was at, but I felt so grateful and like blessed to be able to serve my students, because when I left my high school, I remember I was like, wow, like I really wish I had a mentor, or I really wish I knew how to navigate college a little bit better. And um, working with literally just students that came from a group that I was able to really relate with was something that was extremely rewarding. And I'm just like so grateful for that opportunity. But I think the best part about it was seeing my students, kind of what John was talking about, how they just like flourish and grow on their own if you support them. Like for example, we had a group of students that wasn't able to complete their FAFSA because of certain reasons. And we were really able to create a community group for them. And we were able to push them towards like self-advocacy, and then also like learning how do you advocate for these issues, and then also how do you advocate for community to make sure that you get where you need to be, right? And what's amazing about that is those students continue to advocate for themselves, they continue to advocate for the community, they continue to advocate for the issues that creates barriers for them that make college very difficult for them. And one of my students actually continued the legacy onto Iowa State and was awarded the Iowa ACLU Youth Advocacy Award in 2020. So I'd probably say like that was like the highlight, and like that was like the best part of my job, and definitely wish that I could do it all over again, because it was for sure a dream job. But yeah.
That's awesome. That is so cool to hear, you know, of these students, you know, learning these soft skills that they didn't know they had, and then they're just out there. And oh man, it's so cool. It's so cool to see. We had a coach try to join. Oh, here we go. And we got Misha. Hey, Misha, how are you?
I think she's so connecting. Hi, Misha.
Hey, my lovely old team. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Sorry, I'm like.
No, you're good. So Misha, you know, we're gonna backtrack here a little bit and have you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you were a Gear Up coach, and where you were located, and what was your favorite part and or rewarding part of being a coach? It's a loaded question. It's like three questions into one. Misha, I believe you are muted. Um,
Yep. Are we good now?
yeah, we're
Yep.
good. We can
Yeah,
hear
I
you.
was just talking. So I was saying that I was in Garrett from the beginning. I think 2016. So I was there for all 4 years. I was located at Des Moines East. Um, and then what were the other questions? Sorry.
What was your favorite part of being a coach? What was the most rewarding thing that you saw?
Well, for starters, I had a great team all 4 years. So I really like that because, without a lot of their support and help, a lot of these things, at all of the buildings couldn't be accomplished. But I would have to say the kids, I still have, long lasting relationships with some of those kids. I've seen them today and they're like, oh, Coach Misha, and they're asking me questions and, just knowing the impact that we had or I had on the students, like that's always, a good feeling for me, something that, makes me extremely happy. And just, kind of seeing most of my kids, the ones that I know that I have the more personal relationships with, they're all off in school, they're playing sports, so they're doing very well.
It's that humbling piece of being able to see your students grow. So with that, I think one of the things that really kind of accelerated their growth was COVID, right? What were some of the struggles that you guys, um, along with perseverance, amongst your students?
Like, what were some of the things that we struggled with once COVID hit?
Yeah. Yep.
Um, well, I mean, it just was kind of abrupt. Like, we went from 2 days of missed school to like the rest of the year. So we never got to have like ending conversations with our students, especially the ones on our caseload. Um, we never got to, do our last college visits, our last round of college visits and applications and, things along those lines. And then it was just really hard too when, you got to go virtual and being at East, that's more of you have some of your lower income students, so they don't have computers, laptops, smart devices, stuff like that. They don't have that access to be able to get on and still, follow the plans that we created for them as their coaches. And so I think that was really difficult, and just staying in contact with them, because then the numbers and the names and stuff, they're just not updated on Infinite Campus and all the other stuff. So it was really difficult just, getting a hold of our students. I think it was a lot easier for my caseload because most of our caseload students have our personal cells, whether it was for a college visit or whatever. So it was a lot easier on my caseload. But the ones that's just kind of like floating that they really wasn't my caseload, it was really hard trying to get in contact with them and make sure that they had the necessary resources. And then, different families had different protocols. They didn't want to meet in person, or they, what I'm saying? And then the hardest part for me is just not being able to see the group that I spent 4 years with walk across the stage. Like, that was pretty tough, not, having to see them broken up in sections. So that was a struggle.
John, what was the struggle that you saw during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, kind of along the lines of like what Misha said, but it was a real bummer. I feel like, some of our students, like, beginning of senior year, boom, this is exactly where I'm going. This is for sure what I'm doing. But there's a ton of other kids that, we're still working through that process, like in March. And like for me, I think that was like one of the biggest issues with COVID was just like there were still a lot of kids that I think were interested in really kind of honing in and figuring out like what was going to happen after they graduated, and they needed that support because maybe their family didn't have the resources or the background to like kind of help them navigate those various systems. So for me, it was just a real big bummer. And then especially when you add in like any kind of language barrier or things like that. So then to like, we can send out a million emails to families, but it's just not the same as like being able to walk down the hall and be like, hey, did you ponder that? Did you figure out like a little bit more of what you're interested in? So I think some of those kids that would have been willing to kind of work with us on some plans like face to face, there's just some extra barrier there to being able to reach out to us and kind of work through that stuff. So our kids are resilient. You know, I still get an occasional text every once in a while of like, hey, you know, I wasn't anywhere this year, but I'm trying to, that FAFSA thing we were talking about, like, how do I need to take care of that? So like, you know, some of those things stuck. So that was always great. I was always pumped whenever I got that text of like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but of course I do. I was around for 4 years. So yeah, but you know, that was just a bummer that we couldn't like just really help them ride out those last couple months and knock off those couple of things. And of course, like Misha said, you know, I was at graduation at Hoover, but that looked like me standing by a photo booth and saying hello like in 10 seconds to kids. So it would have been fantastic to see that in like a big arena and just like get to see all those families together and support that.
Yeah, I think I would echo everything that Misha and John were talking about too, where it was just, it was hard not being able to really have a formal goodbye with our students. And also like for myself, like I feel like I was in a pretty unique situation where I came in the last year, so a lot of my job was building those relationships. So I just remember like, and like I still do reflect back where it's like there's still like half of the class that I never met, never introduced myself. And yeah, like what John was talking about, there was definitely like probably some students that are definitely were interested in going to college, and maybe we were taking steps towards having those conversations with them, but since we weren't in the building anymore, we kind of lost that contact. And then on top of what Misha was talking about, like those field trips, you know, like I know that we all had very intentional field trips. Our U of I one ended up not happening. And I know that I was trying to take my students to an HBCU college because Lincoln hadn't taken their students in like 8 years. And those kind of fell into the cracks. But I mean, just overall, just it's sad to know that like there were students that we probably still didn't build relationships with and weren't able to outreach. And with like the virtual setting, that was extremely difficult because what Misha was saying is like not everyone has access to technology. And what John was saying is that not everyone has access to English is not their first language. And that is a challenge within itself. So we were really only able to work with a certain pocket of students is how I felt during the time. I also want to like throw on top of that, which was extremely challenging, was, you know, many of my students were reaching out to me like during the midst of COVID and sharing like their personal stories with the pandemic and healthcare and all these other things that were going on, you know, income, employment. And it's heartbreaking. Like it's, you know, like it's, yeah, but I mean, besides that, like I will say that I still do keep in contact with many of my students, and they've told me that virtual college is extremely difficult and I cannot imagine. But what John said is they are resilient and they persisted through. And I'm just so proud to, you know, be in contact with students that are still reaching out. And I hope that they continue to reach out because what John said is that we remember them, like we don't forget about them. But yeah.
So we focus a lot on the students and what they've learned and whatnot. And now I want to know, what is it that you learned from your time being at Gear Up? We'll start with Christine and then just kind of go down the line.
I think I learned a lot about myself because I was, you know, I was fresh out of college. I was only 23 at the time. I was still figuring my life out. But I think it was a great way for my students to also see that, like, when you're an adult, you're still figuring your stuff out. And just learning from my students really, and, seeing how resilient they were taught me that like, wow, like I can just be as resilient as you, or like they're just out here like doing the dang thing. And I'm like, you know what? I can do the dang thing too. But I'm trying to think what else. Like I think like, yeah, I think just like hearing, because I went to a school that was extremely white, and I did not have a lot of different backgrounds or experiences, and being in DMPS with students that came from all types of background, all diverse experiences, really taught me a lot about myself and my privilege as well too. Is really what I learned a lot, and just how the youth is incredibly powerful, and that they really can do anything. And I think that in itself like is freaking badass. But yeah, that's yeah, I'll pass it over to John. I want to hear what John has to say.
Thanks, boss. All right. Okay, what did I learn in Gear Up? Well, I mean, kind of what you said, like just kind of stepping back and like recognizing like, how good my life was during that point in time, and like the privilege that I went through. And like, for me in high school, like that was my job. Like I was a student, I worked over the summers, but during the school year, it was like, hey, play sports, do drama, whatever. So seeing like our students who are like, still showing up for school, but like there was one of my mentees, like, had the donut shift at Donut Hut. So he would work like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. and then come to class. And of course he's tired. So like just seeing like, help put in context the other experiences that people are going through, and then how they need to navigate high school as well, and like balance those priorities. I think, for my role right now, I'm the volunteer manager at Community Youth Concepts. And the main volunteer thing I oversee is our Mentor Advantage program. So it's a career-based mentoring program. And for me, I think that experience was just really great as I'm onboarding new mentors, and I can kind of talk to them like, we have it all laid out in the handbook, but it's also nice to say like, oh, hey, this section in the handbook, this would have been really good for me. This is how you like have a healthy conclusion to a mentoring relationship. Thanks, COVID. That didn't pan out. But like just things like that. And just helping me understand, like, I think one of the best things I've learned, and somebody said this at a mentoring conference recently, your mentor is there to help you achieve the goals that you set for yourself. I think kind of coming in and not really understanding some people's life situations, and, just really understanding who they are and what their goals are. It's super easy to come in and set all these goals for them. But that's meaningless. Like you're not going to work towards something if it's not something that you actually care about. So like stepping back and recognizing, this person probably knows better than I do what they need for themselves at this moment in time, and being there to offer whatever support that they want and that they feel they need, but kind of not putting goals in other people's lives to get figured out. I think that really helped me and has helped like mentors that I'm working with right now set realistic expectations as well. All right, Mish, that means I get to pass the mic over to you.
Yeah, I missed the question. I'm in my car.
No,
I'm sorry.
What is it that you learned about yourself during the time at Gear Up?
I mean, I guess it's not something new, but then it is like I was able to, give a lot more insight to the kids than I thought I was, just from different perspectives. Because, just with me working with my kids at youth homes and then just having that athletic background, I felt it was a lot easier for me to connect with my kids. So I was honestly scared about that because I'm very much so like, I think my primary is introvert with extrovert tendencies. So with me, getting out there and just trying to getting to know those students, I thought that I was going to struggle, and I actually did not. So just that, and then, just kind of like a little bit of what John and Christine have already said. Like, I've also learned that just kind of trusting the process in these kids. Some of the kids I was like, oh, you're going to stress me out, but understanding like with certain things that they had access to, or, just the support that they have, and just, just them as a person, I had to kind of step back and, let my kids kind of do things on their own. Cause I also found myself kind of like holding a lot of their hands a lot through some of those processes, and recognizing it's not going to be like that at that next level. Once you get to post-secondary education or your career, if you jump straight into it, it's not going to be like that. So it's a little bit of that. What else did I learn about myself throughout this process? I learned I'm kind of pretty good at this mentoring stuff. Hence why I'm a project manager for mentoring right now. Like I actually, found out that for me, like I think I don't want to say anything bad, but I think at one point I struggled in the building that I was at with staff, but the students made it so much better. I thought that, for me, it was going to be, a difficult transition if I didn't have the support that I needed. But when I realized that, the youth is all that matter, it kind of made that a lot easier.
For sure. So that is all the time that we have. I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing your stories and sharing some of the things that you guys went through, and just the work that you guys continue to do around the community and the metro. Obviously you guys have a passion for it, and students are at the forefront. So thank you guys for that, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks. It's always good to see you guys' faces. Yeah, John, we definitely have to get up Christine. All of us, actually. Maybe all of the coaches just need to. Amber just had a baby. Yay. So, I don't know. If you guys are, feeling up to it, we all should get Nate and, try to, find something to do. Maybe another, John, another Grays Lake.
I missed that. I missed that time. I missed your guys' little outside outing.
There we go. Time to go hit the lake.
I fell into the water, and then John tried to jump in and save me or make me feel better. Medina, how are you though? You graduated as well. Then you got married, right? You got married, right?
Married.
How is that?
When you grow up, I'm just kidding. You don't have to get married to grow up. Good. Married life is great.
It's just all smiles.
Yeah, a lot of people it's not hard. At least I don't think it has been. But I believe, because I found my person. But just finished Drake. So go Bulldogs with my master's, and just like all the students that you guys have provided help with. I was low income, first generation. My parents came from León, Guanajuato, and I never saw myself just where I'm at now. I sat back at graduation, and I remember just looking at the stage, and it just felt so unreal. And I just want to tell you guys that the work that you guys do with these students, when they get to that point, when they get to that stage of like, yeah, I had no idea I could do this. Just know that you played a role in that. I wish I could go back and tell some of my mentors and some of my instructors and the people that I looked up to that, they helped me in some shape, way, or form get to where I'm at. So thank you guys for doing the work that you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We will talk to you later. It was great catching up with each and every one of you, and we will talk soon.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Absolutely. Later.
Bye.